Okay, welcome to Omega Eta Zeta's first Finer Womanhood Month event, Good and Bad Here. I first would like to kick off the meeting with introducing myself. I am Jania Charpentier. I'm the co-moderator, and I also have behind the scenes the other co-moderator, Tia Daly. We also want to start with this event by paying homage towards our 5 founders, formerly known as our 5 pearls. And we also want to recognize our 26th International President and CEO, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant, our 18th Atlantic Regional Director, Honorable Judge Early S. Tatham Esquire, and our 4th Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Director, Sharina D. Wright Esquire. Now I would like to introduce the lovely woman who will be helping us with this conversation today. And I will start off with the lovely woman right next to me on my left, Tara Axson, who became a hairstylist as her second career after leaving the corporate world. Tara is the owner of LM Hairstyles Unisex Salon, which is also the salon we are currently standing in. It's beautiful in here, by the way. Next, right here on my right is Brittney Hernandez. Brittney is a loctician who specializes with locks and braids. Brittney also owns her own business named Empress Ivory Crowns. And we also have Maya over there, Maya Cook.
Hi guys.
Maya is an undergraduate student attending the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth. And Maya, along with her sister, has helped in the efforts in passing the Crown Act. And then virtually we have Deanna Cook, who is joining us through Zoom today, so you should see her over there. Deanna is an undergraduate student attending the University of Massachusetts Amherst with a major in anthropology. Deanna is here today again with her experience with hair discrimination and her efforts with passing the Crown Act. And lastly, we have Senator Lydia Edwards, who is here, who is a career advocate, and voice on behalf of society's most vulnerable. Prior to being elected, Senator Edwards worked in the legal field focusing on labor issues such as fighting for access to unemployment insurance, back wages, fair treatment of domestic workers, and combating human trafficking. Additionally, she coordinated statewide campaigns to pass the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights and won. I will now hand over the floor to my co-moderator, Tia Daly, to start off this conversation.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Good and Bad Hair. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. Good and Bad Hair actually comes from a 30-plus-year-old movie seen in the movie School Days, where they're at Madame Riri's salon and they're arguing about whose hair is good and whose hair is bad. And it talks a lot about the colorism issue that we have in the African-American community surrounding hair and colorism. And we are so excited that you're here today. And we are going to kick off the questioning actually with our panelist, Senator Edwards. We're going to kick off the questioning with you. The Crown Act, which is the creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair Act that just passed not too long ago. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is and who it affects and what it is specifically?
Absolutely. The Crown Act is basically expanding our civil rights, understanding that a lot of discrimination doesn't necessarily have to say the word Black, but can be through policing our bodies, our hair, and so on and so forth, and specifically is targeting and punishing Black people. So what the Crown Act does is basically expand our discrimination laws to include natural hair as a protected category for which you cannot be discriminated against. It's prompted from the from actually the two girls, as you know, who were proud, amazing. I think, is Deanna on? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Well, she can speak to her incredible story, but it basically bans and prevents workplace and schools from saying that you cannot wear your natural hair. And it's part of a national movement and making sure that all of us really can present who we are as we are, and that it shouldn't be punished in any way, shape, or form. And it's removing any kind of policing that does that.
Awesome. Now, are any of the other panelists? Maya Cook is here. This is Deanna's sister. So I'm going to actually kick it over to Maya. So Maya, talk to us a little bit about your involvement with the establishment of the Crown Act here in Massachusetts.
Hi, so my involvement with the Crown Act here in Massachusetts is that we actually sat down with Steve Altrino a couple of times and helped go over with him what we think should be added, what we think should be removed, just to make sure that we were, covering all our bases and making sure that the law was very specific on what is protected.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask your sister Deanna to kind of chime in a little bit just about your history and how you and Deanna became advocates for the Crown Act. Talk to us a little bit about your experience and how you two became involved.
Hi, so yeah, we became involved when first, like Maya mentioned, Senator Steve Altrino approached us after he heard about what happened to me and Maya at our high school at the time. For those who don't know, me and my sister, we were punished for wearing braids to school, and we had to go through our sophomore year, pretty much the entire year, fighting our school in order to wear our hair in braids. Eventually, we were able to overturn that rule at school, and then since then, we continue to push to not have that rule in any more schools, and for other people who are facing hair discrimination to be able to speak up and do the same and fight that. After we talked with Senator Altrino, we continued to push after he said that he wanted to put what happened to us and make it illegal and put that into legislation. So we continued to work with him throughout the years until we were able to help pass the Crown Act.
Awesome. That's a lot for young people at 15 years old to go through that. But I believe I was reading some statistics on it, and it said that 100% of young Black girls who are in that elementary, like that K through 6th grade, actually experience hair discrimination by the time they're 10. So I'm going to kick it over to some of our stylists. Have you guys been in that area where you had that hair discrimination experience?
I have, in the sense of, I had some clients who were young ladies who actually have been part of organizations where they had to perform in the arts, and for them to perform, they had to always wear their hair straight. They couldn't wear it in their natural form, or they couldn't wear braids. And it was great that they came here and got their hair done, but I would tell them that I felt bad that they had to do all of this work for their textured hair because they had to present themselves with straight hair. And there's nothing wrong with having straight hair. It's just the fact that they had to put in extra work in order for them to be able to perform. And I don't know if that's something that's practiced amongst the arts period, or in other areas, but I just felt that was unfortunate because it sends the message that your own hair is not good enough to be presented.
What about you, Brittney?
So I actually think I work on the somewhat like opposite side of the fence. While I think we work with like some of the same, people experiencing discrimination with their hair, but the majority of my clients come from a standpoint of like they've experienced discrimination at work, maybe not so much in the school, but maybe, it's harder to get a job, or they've got family members pressuring them, like, oh, you're not going to be able to work. What locks? Are you crazy? That type of thing. So sometimes to have someone sitting in the chair is what feels like a liberating moment for them, because they're able to say, well, I graduated. I don't have to, if I don't want to, wear a different hairstyle, and I can wear my natural hair, and I can watch it grow and just be happy. And I'm watching them kind of embrace that. And so I think, it's more so me hearing their experiences that kind of make me feel like, okay, well, I'm definitely in the right place as far as,
I think my co-host and I actually were having a little bit of dialogue about the workplace situation regarding discrimination in the workplace. Did you have some kind of feedback on, your questioning regarding discrimination in the workplace?
Well, it's more of like, for the most part, do you mainly see that discrimination is happening in the workplace, or do you feel like it could also happen outside of work and outside of school settings?
I'm pretty sure it does happen outside as well. Even if it's not something that's like, hey, you can't come here because your hair looks like that. Maybe it's just the stare, something as simple as, if my locks aren't twisted, which they weren't before I came in here. And I was like, well, it might look a little offish because it was just kind of like in the lioness mane. And I was just like, and I think maybe no one will say like, you can't work here, you can't come here, but it's still like, just those little comments. Sometimes I get them even from my family, like, oh, it's time for a retwist. Just like everybody else's hair. What about you? And I'm like, but I like my hair like this. And it's that feeling of like, why can't my hair just like, this is how it grows out of my head. It doesn't come out twisted. It grows out like this. Why can't I just enjoy that? Why can't I look in the mirror and say, wow, I look good? Why does my hair have to be a certain way in order to give myself that compliment? I think it just became like, something that it doesn't necessarily always tie into a professional setting, but maybe just like an everyday thing that's, on the brain about, am I beautiful? Do I need to do my hair to be beautiful? Wake up in the morning, take the bonnet off. Is this acceptable? And sometimes I think we second guess ourselves, which is a part of the, the discrimination. Yeah.
Well, I want to follow up on that because I definitely think outside of like family wise, just as you touched upon, because my family is from the South, and sometimes if you go to like family functions, they'll look at the person like, do they look crazy? You know what I mean? They look like a pickaninny. They look like this, And so sometimes that can make people feel uncomfortable. All the while, I do believe that, when you go places, you should always be presentable. If presentable means that you do your best to look as neat as possible. And so neat doesn't mean that it has to be straight or whichever, but it doesn't mean like you just roll out of bed and then you go to a wedding looking like that. You know what I mean? Like I'm being super facetious, but I do believe in that. But family for sure, especially if it's rooted into like cultural things, because when you go all the way back, they were taught that, so therefore they impress it upon the younger generation as well.
I'm gonna kick this over to Senator Edwards, because you're in a professional setting. You're in the Senate. What is your experience with, your hair and how you present yourself in those professional spaces?
Well, it's not only, professional, but it's also very, very public, constantly. So in general, I feel a certain level of pressure to look decent, walking around the district. Now, my district is actually it's actually very, very, very white. It's only 4% African American. And so sometimes I would say we are our harshest critics. I mean, not saying that I can get away with my edges being a little messed up in my district, but I probably can more than I could if I represented other parts of Boston. But in terms of having to look professional, yeah, that's always on my mind. I used to be able to put hair up in a bun or in a whatever baseball cap and go shopping, and I just feel a certain level of always having to look at least like I could, if God forbid a camera came in or if someone else that I knew in my district, I have to look a certain kind of way. I am encouraged, however, by the beautiful acceptance and not even a discussion of the fact that Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown has sister locks, and I have sister locks as well. And I love that. I love seeing her with her natural hair, and that, you know, in the history books for my daughters and daughters' daughters, they're going to see a Black woman with natural hair. I do think that there's a certain level of conformity, though, that Black women feel that they have to have, especially if you're in politics and you feel that you have to earn the trust or not frighten white people, let's be very frank, by being the aggressive Black woman. And so, and I think it was well stated actually by Michelle Obama, where she admitted she straightened her hair and did not wear braids. So she wanted to. She didn't wear braids because she thought that was too much for America to handle. So for me, I actually almost go out of my way to stay natural. One, it's an easy hairstyle. People forget it's an economic move for me and many people as well. Braids were simply cheaper in college. It's cheaper than a weave. It was cheaper than trying to do a press and curl every other week. It was cheaper. So it's cheaper for me to just go to my stylist, who's on the Zoom, by the way, Jacqueline Myers. She does my sister locks. It's cheaper for me to go to her and to keep my hair natural. It's also healthier. And I think if I am financially stable, mentally and emotionally stable, I'll be a better politician and a better public servant. So it's better for people that I serve, that I can show up in my own space and in my own, as myself. I ran with these locks both times, and I won Charlestown, East Boston, and the North End as a city councilor, and now I represent Winthrop, Revere, Back Bay, North End, East Boston as a senator. So I think if in anything, I hope that through running and being myself and on the many things that I put out, the flyers, I hope there are little Black girls in the district and around the state that see and know that their hair is beautiful.
I think that both Senator Edwards and Tara touched on something that was important. Our own people. Like the comments were more about our own people. So Senator Edwards, you said you weren't necessarily in a district where there are a lot of African Americans residing in that area, and you, Tara, talked a lot about, you know, what you can't come out to the barbecue looking like you just fell up out the bed. You know. Deanna, talk to me a little bit about that. Have you had that experience from us? Is it us more so? Inclusive of not us? What is your experience there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it? Just cut out a little bit.
No problem. I was saying that, you know, the conversation that Senator Edwards and Tara were talking about was the critiques and criticism that we get from folks that look like us, that have our type of hair. Do you have experiences? What is your experiences in knowledge in that space of dealing with us when it comes to our hair? And, you know, I know for me, it was mama was getting your hair laid or getting your hair relaxed, or, you know, you weren't taking care of your hair in the beginning. Mom was probably taking care of your hair. Somebody else was taking care of your hair. Talk to me a little bit about that criticism that you may have received from us.
Yeah, I would say definitely me and Maya's push to get braids was because our Black friends were telling us that we needed to get braids and do our hair and, you know, like get to it, be a part of the culture and do it. I would also say I now go to a predominantly white school, and I definitely can get away with not as fully kept braids here than I would say if I'm going to one of my Black clubs. They're like, it's time to get redone. Versus I'll still get a compliment from a white girl when these are ready to be done. So there's definitely a difference between how people see it and how others do. I'd say, yeah, there's definitely critiques from both sides. I would say I don't feel as much pressure as I used to. For example, like for job interviews and stuff like that, I definitely used to feel a lot of pressure, like, oh, I shouldn't wear, braids or certain styles for things like that. And now I definitely, hold my own and just go how I want to, and I don't let outside pressure dictate how I should or shouldn't wear my hair, not anymore.
So we're talking about good and bad hair. So I want to know how you guys define good hair or bad hair.
Ask mine.
Okay.
So for me, I personally define good hair as healthy hair, hair that makes you feel good when you look in the mirror, and it feels hair that just makes you feel good, like you feel good doing your hair, doing like a deep conditioner, doing a twist out. That's what I would say is good hair. It's how it makes you feel.
Good hair,
Or bad hair. You go ahead and say it, because I know.
Don't be ready. All right. I think, in my opinion, it's just my opinion. I feel like good hair is the hair that you're born with, the hair that belongs to you, the hair that was assigned to you. I feel like it's versatile within itself. Natural hair, I think, is underrated. What can be done with it? And I believe that because my hair was processed before the locks, but I also noticed that my hair wasn't able to withstand some of the processes that it went through. There was a lot of pressure of like just straightening her hair, hurry up and do it so that you don't have to, it's quicker. But I ended up going through a lot of damaged hair that wasn't so resilient as I would have liked it to be. And so I feel like when it's something that's going to end up being the opposite of healthy, which is what was just said, I feel like it can, in my opinion, can fall under the category of maybe not so good hair.
What about you, Tom?
So for myself, I actually don't use either term, to be honest, because so many of us come in with how we feel about ourselves and our hair, and it's one of those things that I personally, especially in the salon, try to make people feel good about themselves. You know what I mean? And their hair is a reflection of that. And so, like, my motto is that we just celebrate and enhance your youth. So, with that being said, is that yes, you have your hair, and you may have challenges, but how can I help you with that? You know what I mean? And so, I don't use the terms as much because I already know what people come with when they sit in the chair, and so it's like, okay, well, how can I help you in whatever challenges that you have? So I just don't use it much. I mean, I don't know if that's called naive. I mean, one could say, well, what if someone's hair is like badly broken off and everything? But the thing is, again, how can I help you rather than saying it's bad hair? Because for me, especially as a stylist and how I feel as a person, if I'm calling it bad, I'm already confirming what you feel about yourself, So I honestly don't even think in that realm at all. So.
Okay, with that, how important do you think imagery is, or seeing people that look like us is being portrayed on TV or in social media in general?
Repeat it again, please.
How important do you think seeing people like us, like African Americans, maybe with natural hairstyles, is for being on like social media or on TV being portrayed.
Is that for any of us here?
That's really.
Oh, okay. I would say that it's very important. I definitely remember when I was younger watching TV, Disney Channel, I would see, you know, Hannah Montana with the blonde hair, and that's what I would see, or I would see, you know, just not people who looked like me. And so instead of like, it just didn't make me feel good. It made me feel like, oh, I wouldn't have like that long blonde hair. And like, I don't feel that way now that I know that's not what good hair is, you know? And now that I can see like different representations now and see people who actually look like me, dolls who look like me, stuff like that, it does make me feel better and feel less like secluded. So I think it's very important.
I do want to just mention, like, when I'm thinking about like TV and us being portrayed, I think about How to Get Away with Murder. And she would be rocking. So I'm thinking that's like the first thing that came to my mind. But just seeing a Black woman taking off her wig in the middle of a show, that was very important because that's what we go through every day.
Has anybody had the "can I touch it" experience?
Yeah.
Senator Edwards, have you had the "can I touch your hair" experience?
Way more than I would like. Sometimes on the campaign, sometimes just people just reaching over, and it is, you know, I've had to catch people's hands by the wrist, and you know, then they look like, you know, the look of horror that they feel like they're about to get slapped. I mean, it's just disgusting, and the sense of I'm curious about it, therefore, regardless that it's your body, I get to touch it. This entitlement to everything that it's disgusting. And I just wanted to also say in terms of imagery, I know you touched on that a little bit and being able to see that. I mean, I think it's huge. I mean, for a while, I was the only Black senator we had. And now I'm joined by my dear friend, Liz Miranda, and that makes two of us. So just in general, being able for little girls to look up and see us and come over. I mean, I have Black girls from all over the state contact, I'm sure me and Liz, just because we're the senators that they identify with. But so much of that imagery is not just what's beautiful, but who's to be protected, who is to be seen as of value, who gets the boy or girl, who gets the sense of belonging. So much of that imagery, because they're usually trying to sell a product or something like that, but it is about it's about, I think, so much more than beauty standards. And one of the things I do want to know, I know you're on a tight schedule, but I do want to know, we're the only, and I have a bill to end this, the only group that has the toxicities of the hair relaxer being targeted to our youth, right? So my bill it's to ban targeted toxicity to Black girls, and the Just For Me, it's got to go, because Susie Q, blonde, you know, you go blonde, you want to go redhead, you want to go whatever, they put a grown ass woman on those products, or they just have. So I just want to put that out there.
So I'm gonna keep on that, and I'm gonna shoot this over to Deanna. Where does the responsibility lie? So now we have the Crown Act. We got folks wanting to reach out and touch people and their hands getting smacked. And from the looks that I got in the room, it looked like several people have experienced that. Whose responsibility, where is the responsibility lying to educate folks about this act, about you, please don't touch me, you know, how you handle it. It's not, I don't think anybody's necessarily offended about having questions asked about hair, but to your point, Senator Edwards, it's the aggressiveness and the entitlement of, I can touch your hair. No. So, Deanna, give me some feedback. Talk to me a little bit about what you think about how that education piece needs to come about.
Yeah, so I think that the education piece kind of relies within everybody, because, you know, it really does come from all different aspects of life of how this affects everybody. We have children who need to see that they can be represented in society, in TV shows and dolls and toys. On Halloween, kids go to pick a costume, and I always remember the hardest part about picking a costume was trying to get the hair to match, because most of the characters did not have braids or locks or twists or anything in the hair. They had straight wigs or pink Lala Loopsy, whatever hair that was not close to it. So it really is everywhere in all types of imagery, parenting, telling kids that their hair is beautiful, and going to school, having parents say these rules don't belong in our schools. My children are wearing this type of hair, fighting back in the schools, and having everybody be able to speak up when it comes to being in situations like the ones that we were in, and in the media. So I really do think it comes from all over. In any way that we can, we need to kind of flood and push that it really is a big issue that needs to be addressed and not forgotten about, or pushed to the bottom. It really is something that's around us, so we need to keep talking about it since it is all over.
Absolutely. Sorry, Brittney, I'm just trying to on that at all. On that education piece.
On education. I think that, I agree with you that it should be in all of us to educate. And at the same time, it shouldn't be that, Tara has to be the one to be educated for all. Because sometimes people look at us and think that we are the ones that represent everybody. And so when we say something, they think that it's for all. And my point in that is that it's better to be respected for the person that I am and my boundaries. And I can tell you, this, that, and the other, but it's not one thing applies to all, because I went to a predominantly white school all my life, and sometimes I felt I was looked upon that I was the Black person educator. You know what I mean? And that's a big responsibility to put on people, and it shouldn't be expected, but at the same time, if something that you don't like or something that you do want to say to someone, I think that it should be said, and that, if you touch my hair, just like Senator Edwards said, please, you know what I mean? Don't touch my hair. I haven't approached you to touch your hair, boundaries, all of those things. And so I agree with the education, but I also don't think that we should be the ones individually to represent one race. This is an aspect of who I am and what I don't like and what if I want to be able to educate, I can also say, well, Black girls don't really like touch their hair. That's fine, but some might, you know what I mean? But it's not all. But my point is that it's a huge burden to put also on young ladies, and just us in the workplace and so forth. I am not a museum for you to look at.
Maya, so you and Deanna's experience was in high school. And so now that we have the Crown Act and this legislation and the imagery that's coming out of folk images of people that look like us, education, that space. You go to a predominantly white school, you don't have a lot of teachers that look like you. And so how, again, kind of tying into this, how do we get that in the schools? If we have 100% of young Black children saying that they're being discriminated before they're age 10, you were 15. Right. Right. So, where's that space? How do we get the educators to know? How do we bring it into the schools?
I would say it's even before the kids get to school. It's the parents' job too. They're adults and they should be able to educate their kids about stuff like that and not solely rely on the school. Obviously the schools do need to educate children on that, but I do think that it's the parents' responsibility to initiate and start that conversation. And even just thinking back to when me and Deanna were 15, it was only a handful of people who were understanding the situation, and it would have made a big difference had, the other white students, their parents talked to them about it and explained the situation. We could have had way more support had more people understood.
So I'm gonna come to our stylists. there are about 1.5 million new products out there for our hair, quote unquote, our hair. What is your feeling about the saturation so quickly of all these hair care products and it being for everybody else? I know that Jania and I have spoke on it a million times. She has her opinions about certain products and she doesn't use them. I think we all probably have certain products that we are, we tend to lean towards. But as stylists, what are your opinions, Brittney, about all these hair care products that have now all of a sudden just kind of popped up into the market to go align with that imagery?
I feel like the expectation with marketing is that Black people, for lack of a better term, are expected to buy. I feel like we have shown a tremendous amount of support when with anything, not just hair products, just in general. We like something, we're gonna buy it. And I feel like being a race that has been significantly taken advantage of when it comes to the different things that we are interested in, and other people and other groups of people capitalizing on that. I feel like when marketing comes out, it is specifically, so since we're talking about the hair products, it's kind of just like, well, since they are in a position where they have been told so many times that they are not good looking, or that they need to try harder, or that they need to do this or do that when it comes to beauty products, and hair products to be specific, since that's what we're talking about. I think it's just kind of like another mini race on how they can get something sold to us. And I feel like, one thing that I learned, because I'm very niched with just natural hair and locks to be specific, that there are different products that come out, and I feel the pressure all the time about, like, clients will come in, they're like, hey, I heard this is good for locks, I heard this, I heard that. Like, did you read it has alcohol in it. Like, did you read there's certain things, it's like the texture of the product, and just knowing that locks get build up very easily. It's like that, it's too tacky, it's gonna hold, things are gonna stick to that, and I think it's just they come in genuinely wanting to know, like, should I try this? There's this new thing, or such and such is making their own retwist product, such and such is doing this, and I feel like we're targeted because respectfully, if it shines, we're like, hey, that's for me sometimes. And I feel like most times, and I feel like it's the easiest way to kind of just be like, well, to make a quick dollar off of it. And I don't think it's necessary, because one thing that I ended up learning with doing locks is that all the different products that I was trying, and most of them I was just like, no, it's just not necessary. But I ended up going back to kind of the basics. So there's this thing where, the different hair oils and moisturizing locks, putting, use this oil, use that oil, millions of different oils. And then I started, and so what I was doing was I was using the same products I was using with the clients. Because I was like, well, I don't want someone to ask me about a product and I just tell them based off of the label alone. I want to know from experience, to share my experience with them. I'm only one person, but if I can tell you what happened to my locks, then maybe that will, give you something to work with. And what ended up happening was I learned very quickly that the natural hair oils, the variety that there is, would actually dry out the scalp. So what I did was I ended up listening, because I learned from my clients as well. I ended up going back to greasing the scalp, just like when mama used to put you right in between her legs and part the hair and grease. And my scalp would stay moisturized. And like days later, I touch my head and there's still oil and like still substance coming out. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't have to oil my hair every day. So then I started saying, well, I think all these different products coming on is to kind of catch the eye, catch the attention. But are they all necessary? Maybe not. And then that's my take on it.
I totally agree with you. It frustrates me to a bit, because I feel that it's so much more about marketing. Now, generation now, the younger generation, and I really am purposeful when I say younger generation. you all know more about what to do with your hair because you start out with your hair natural and you're living your life with natural hair. Some have chemical processes too, which is fine. But for those who are in mind and maybe older, we started off maybe with a relaxer. Now we're deciding to become natural. And it's like, what do I do with my hair? Because we have not been trained in how to handle our natural hair. So because we're confused, now the companies are like, they don't know. So because they don't know, they're gonna try. And then I bet everybody who's maybe watching this or sitting here, you got about 80 products underneath your cabinet. You know, because it's like, what do I use? I don't know. You know, and I've even had people come in who use products and it says this because it says that by having their hair and there's clumps of product in their hair because they don't know how to use it. So I feel like it's a way of confusing us so that we buy it and we just keep buying and trying and so forth until we get that masterful cocktail. You know what I mean? I had it too. You know, I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I put that together. Boom, that was it. But I honestly don't have a solution to that problem other than I really hope that these companies are really interested in us getting to know a product to be able to use for our hair and it works rather than, hey, you know, Black people or people of color are looking to work their natural hair, so let's just put something out because this company did. We got to get something out, you know. And so it's just mad confusion. I feel like when there's so many options, you're just confused, you know. And I know I spend so much money on products, you know, and it's ridiculous, and that is frustrating. And then to your point too is that, you know, then people come to me like, oh, have you heard of this product? I haven't, but I believe it's out there because this is something else. And there's another oil that works and you find out something else that I've never heard of this, you know, not before. And it's out there, but I mean, it's like they try to find something that sounds so exotic too, to use it for hair, you know, so that it's like, oh, it's doing this, you know, when you probably look at all the products and the basic thing is just X, Y, and Z, you know.
Don't let them put grows your hair on it. We'll grow your hair in 2 weeks.
Only read the front of the box. But I think Senator Edwards, you mentioned something about some legislation that you were working on now regarding like Just For Me products and the relaxers that are being targeted towards the babies. What is your input and feedback on what Brittney and Tara said regarding the saturation of just Black hair care products?
In part, it's norm. So the saturation of the products is in part because there's a new saturation of how to wear your hair. I mean, there's just more options. It used to just be the hot comb. You're going to get burned and call it a day. So to a certain extent, there's just more options that we've ever had before as options for styles. And then, like many of us many of us have been making products in our sinks and around our homes for years because the industry never really studied our hair as a standard, never studied its health as the goal. So I'm not surprised that there's a certain amount of innovation. And you know, Black women are the number one entrepreneurs in the country. We are starting businesses, and I think it's beautiful if these are Black-owned products and they're trying to basically nurture options for us to have. I think it's sad when these are not Black-owned products and they are basically playing on stereotypes, you know, what your hair is bad in its natural state, little girl. And that's what this law is, I believe, targeting. It's targeted. I mean, Just For Me, there is no Just For Me to turn your hair blonde. There is no childlike product to say you need your hair, little girl, a white girl, a girl with straighter hair, change your color of your hair or do something different with it, turn it, whatever. They just don't use little girls. And and then we found out, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, social media, a lot of the hair relaxer models, the little girls, never relaxed their hair. They confessed online that they were all these models and they were doing a press and curl. They never used the products themselves. Meanwhile, the rest of us used it. I used them, and burning our scalps out. So it was false advertisement. It was targeted advertisement. It played on the low self-esteem or the self-esteem of Black girls, what really made you beautiful, and they used a little Black girl to do it. And I find it horrific. These are chemicals they're finding that are connected to uterine cancer. They are finding these chemicals are connected to early incidence of puberty in Black girls because they're filled with estrogen. These are unhealthy. That's why I call it toxicity. I don't just say, I say this is targeted toxicity, and I want them off the shelf. I don't want little Black girls to have this targeted to them. You do you if you want to relax your hair as a grown woman. You do you if you as an adult decide for your daughter you want to relax her hair. But I think there's a special subtle cruelness, nastiness when little Black girls are the ones that are the only ones that have this kind of chemical targeted towards them. So the goal is to ban it and to prevent it from ever being done. It's a consumer, and I want to give shout out to my sister in service, Representative Brandy Flukler Oakley. She is the sponsor in the House.
I know Brandy. That's awesome.
Outside of the new legislation with the Crown Act, what more needs to be done, in our opinion, to keep the momentum going?
I think what more could be done is like hair education, because like you were saying, it's the relaxers and the texturizers are targeted towards these young kids. Maybe if they learn like how to take care of their hair from a young age, and of course they can learn from their parents too, but maybe if they also teach it in school and explain, alcohol will dry your hair out, and tea tree oil will moisturize your hair. Just, I think that needs to be done, because now that we're able to be able to wear our hair how we want to, now we need to focus on taking care of it.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that. So somebody who's a little bit older, I can't say that my mother would have known about tea tree oil or the alcohol thing. That's something that's kind of recent. And so is it just teaching this new generation moving forward, or to your point, the parents as well, to educate parents to have those, for them to get educated on how to take care of their hair and their child's hair? Ian, what are your thoughts on that? On the parents' education of hair to take care of these young girls.
Yeah, I think parents, honestly, anyone at any age can learn about their hair. I mean, I think we all still probably learn new things about what's good for our hair all the time. There's TikTok videos and Facebook videos that are all going about, I feel like you learn something new every month that's really helpful. So I definitely think no one is too young or old to learn and educate, what's good for our hair. I think I definitely agree about getting, the Just For Me and all those things off the shelves, and those can now take a very, very back seat, and we can start putting the good products out in the front. I definitely remember as a little girl seeing the Just For Me, and what caught my eye was seeing a little Black girl on a box. There were no other products that had a little Black girl on the box, let alone with straight hair, shiny, big smile. They do it very on purpose. That's exactly what, my sisters and I saw when we were in the store. It's the only product that had it right in our face. So yeah, I definitely agree. There's a lot of work that can be done when it comes to education for anybody.
And Tara, when you're in the salon, and Brittney as well, do you feel some obligation to kind of foster that kind of education about hair when somebody's sitting in your chair about, the alcohol in the products and drying out your hair and what it's working for? Because it's different for everybody, to Brittney's point. And so, when people are sitting in your chairs, do you feel some professional obligation to kind of teach and educate in that space?
Absolutely, hands down. That's why I'm a big proponent of consultations, and if you come to me and you have questions, I'm able to tell you, or if it's something I don't know, I can find out, or I encourage you, research it and see what it has done, maybe try it for, 3 or 4 weeks to see how it works for your hair, but I'm also I also tell them the caution of using certain things, because again, using the word saturated, everything's so saturated, from the point of just us thinking that we always have to have our hair moisturized. I don't know how many people have sat in my chair and their hair is so heavy with like, I don't know if it's petroleum jelly, I don't know, if it's mineral oil. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but what I'm saying is that be able to tell them that you don't have to oversaturate your hair with certain products or anything like that in order to have it be a certain way. Because you mentioned about how you oil your scalp, right? You notice that because grease was great, but one of the other things I love that you said was that you didn't have to do it every day. There's so many people that think that because we're Black, we need to oil our scalp every day, and then, day 5, your hair is like pressed to your, it doesn't move because it's moving with you, so just to be able to get people's mindset out of those stereotypes, So.
And I think to go with that, it's like someone will try a product or multiple products and not wash the previous product out. So that's what it is, like caked up of like, I have the edge control in the front, then I have like grease in the middle, oil in the back, this one, that one, and it's like, then they'll ask like, well, does this work for this? Does that work for that? And for me, I try to keep it simple because I personally don't want to tell someone that, this works and it might work for me, or it might have worked for the previous client, but it might not work for someone else. So I try to keep it simple. And then especially now, what I'm noticing is that I have a few clients who have different issues with their scalp, and I'm not a dermatologist. So it'll be, I'll always ask, well, do you have something that was prescribed to you to use? And I allow people to bring their shampoo or something that might be, that they found was working for them. Because sometimes I stick to very simple products, and then I'm just like, well, this might not work for everybody. So I try to be, respectful with that. I can't always educate on a product because I might not know the ins and outs of what it might do to someone's hair. So I try to keep it simple and then let them kind of like, figure out, well, I've been using this for 10 years and it's been working great, but then I heard this came out. Well, what you were using for 10 years, if it was working great, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to try something else, so I try to like do a little bit more maybe navigating rather than, speaking too much on a product that I might not know enough about. I think I try to reassure the client, if you're doing something that's been working for you, maybe don't get super excited about the new thing that's on the market.
Okay, so before we open it up to the chat, I'm going to ask this last question. When people do experience hair discrimination in a state where there isn't a Crown Act, what do they do? And that might, we'll start off with Senator Edwards. What is your advice for people who are experiencing discrimination when they don't have something like the Crown Act, even in those spaces where we do, but in those places where there is no Crown Act, what is your advice about advocating for themselves in that space?
Well, I do think that you can link it in some cases to just outright racial discrimination. In some cases, the disparate impact. For example, if you ban just cornrows and dreadlocks, for example, at your school, and you feel who is only impacted by that, right? You might be able to have talk to a lawyer, figure out what racial, or if there's a form of racial discrimination. I mean, we have a lot of work to do nationwide. I mean, I still have the images of that brother, the young man who was wrestling, and you remember he was doing a good job, and they stopped the whole entire match and said, you either cut your hair right now or you continue. And he let them cut their hair. It was disgusting to watch how they just ripped through his hair And I think he then channeled that and beat the crap out of the kid he was up against. But the point was, it was so clearly meant to hurt him and to prevent him from winning. It had nothing to do with cleanliness. It had nothing to do with danger to anybody, like his hair could get caught. It had everything to do with the fact that he was winning as a Black man. And so sometimes the best thing you can do is highlight that and embarrass the school, the policy, the coach, the workplace for that. I mean, we statistically, I've read and heard that Black women use social media at a very high rate. We move much faster on those things, and sometimes that's a network that we need to capitalize on when we're talking about economic boycotts, when we're talking about people asking, why is this happening? I mean, really stepping in to be a voice when we can. So, I do feel for those brothers and sisters who don't have the Crown Act, who are trying their best to live in their natural state. The healthiest state that you can be in is just to let your hair be. We know this. And I would encourage them, honestly, to reach out to the National Crown Act organization. But more importantly, and absolutely, which is so key, this is coming from being a legal services attorney, you document everything. You make sure it's very clear what's happening, when it's happening, how it's happening, what they asked you to comply with, were there warnings? All of those things are very important to have.
Thank you for that. I'm going to ask Deanna and Maya, as young women who have had this experience and have advocated for and are in this space to here in Massachusetts be able to participate in development of the Crown Act, what are the things that you can say from experience to young girls who were in a position? What is your advice? What are your words of encouragement for them? We'll go to Deanna first.
I would say that, when me and Maya were doing it, we didn't have the Crown Act. And we know exactly how it feels to be in that position. So I would say to do what we did and make a lot of noise, make it known what's happening. Don't let them take away your voice, because at some point, sometimes that's your only power. So be able to use what you have, use your voice and acknowledge what's going on and tell it to as many people as you can. Fight back in any way that you can. Obviously, protect yourself legally. I remember we started all of our communication was all on paper. We made sure we had a paper trail of everything that they were saying, telling us what to do, what we were being told we had to do, and what we already did. And we also did the protests, and we didn't do them privately. We were on the streets. We were very public about what was happening. That way they couldn't hide from what was happening to us and what they were doing to us. And that we were making it known to them that we're not going to take no for an answer, and that we're not going to accept what you're saying, because I feel like a big part of it for us was they just thought we were just going to take it and that we would just let them get away with it. And that's how it continues. So we really wanted to fight and make sure that, no, we're not going to take it, and we're not going to let you get away with it. We're going to do everything that we can to stop you and to make sure that we uplift others who are going through it as well. So I would just say to reach out to your community as well, because I guarantee there's other people who probably know how you feel. And even if they don't, I'm sure there are people who want to support you and uplift you and help you. And even if you are alone, me and Maya, we had each other at the beginning. It was just me and her. But what kept us going is that we knew that we were right. We knew that it was wrong and that it wasn't okay and that we couldn't accept it. So just continuing and remembering why we wanted it so badly is what really got us through. And so to just remember why you're doing it and to just hold on to that.
Your sister just gave us a lot here, so it was good though. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add on to what you said?
Pretty much I just agree with everything Deanna said. Definitely make a lot of noise. Don't be quiet about it, because that's exactly what they want. They want to be able to get away with it and put you down and make you feel like you have no voice and that what they're doing is okay. And it's not. So I think anyone, especially, we didn't have the Crown Act when we were going through it. Anyone who's going through it, if they don't have the Crown Act, make sure that it's known, make sure people know what's happening, exactly everything that's happening, because you are in the right to go against a horrible policy or any type of discrimination, and you shouldn't take it silently.
I'm gonna ask our two stylists to kind of finish us off there. Just encouragement for anybody that comes into your space, any young, beautiful Black queen with her crown, whether it's all put together or not put together. What is it that you're going to tell them if you see that September rolls around and you see that little Black girl come in and get her hair done before the school starts? What are we encouraging her to say? Or what are you saying to her to encourage her about her hair?
I would say embrace what makes you happy. Embrace who you are. It shouldn't be something that, is just seen on the TV, which I have two daughters, so I'm very big on that, because I can tell when it's something that they are looking, like I can tell where they're looking for their inspiration and their motivation. And I want it to come from the home, to be honest, and so I would say, if it makes you happy when you look in the mirror and you feel most like yourself, embrace that. And if someone is telling you that it's wrong, speak up.
And for myself, it is basically the same thing. I let them know how beautiful they are, period, regardless of what they do with their hair. Because people have choices, and so if they want straight sometime, what's great about your hair that it's curly, you can wear it straight. If it's straight, it's great, you can curl it. You know what I mean? And so I try to really let them know how beautiful they are inside. And this is just like I said, enhancement of who they are. Because I believe that if you feel good about yourself inside, it doesn't matter what choice you make, you know what I mean? You'll radiate you yourself. Because a lot of times we're just defined by our hair, I can say so much more, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but I just want them to know that they are beautiful for who they are.
That's good, y'all. We're gonna record that and share that. So I know we've had some great questions. We could probably talk about this. You know how we get when we get up in the salon. We could talk about this for the next 3 or 4 hours, but we're gonna we want to appreciate your time. So if there are any questions in the chat, you can drop them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can take you off. You can ask the question. I'm gonna ask our tech team if they see any questions in the chat.
No questions so far, but Jacqueline said if anyone is in need of a Black dermatologist that specializes in Black hair issues, feel free to contact her.
Well, thank you, Jacqueline. Jacqueline, drop your information in the chat because we just got some oohs and ahs up here.
Yes.
Some oohs and ahs. But again, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can drop the question in the chat.
I see. Okay, I got one person. Go ahead,
Hi,
Sarah.
Sarah Ann. Hi, thank you all for having this great forum. This is more of a comment from early on when we first came on the program about how we can be some of our harshest critics, our own folk, our own people. And I recall when I adopted my daughter and people came by to see her and instantly friends said, girl, look at her hair. You should have got you a boy. And that rang through. My daughter's 32 years old. That rang through. And I remember friends bringing by the old Dark and Lovely product because we didn't have Just for Me, but we had a really bad thing called Kitty Kit out there. And when you look at it, it had lye in it. And it did have estrogen in it. And people would always pressure me to say, you know what? You got to start relaxing it. You got to start relaxing it. So there's that pressure. And my daughter has beautiful twists. And even, she'd have a blowout. I blow it out for certain events and certain recitals and different things like that, but never chemicals. And when you start to look at the bottom of these boxes or the back of it, you see arsenic in these products. And this is what we're using for children. So thank you for having this discussion in this forum.
Thank you, Sarah. That's important. That's we've been through a lot with hair and image and colorism, and we do a lot to ourselves, and sometimes we have to acknowledge that piece too, the things that how we tear ourselves down. We're fighting with people that don't look like us, and we sitting here arguing amongst each other about the baby's hair. Do we have any other chats or raised hands?
Jacqueline just put in her information. Thank you so much for that information. So she has her phone number on there. If anyone wants to write it down, 617-549-4562. And I do not at this moment see any raised hands or any other questions.
Oh, sorry. You said 617-549.
Yep.
We're going to share it with you. You're going to be here.
Yeah. 617-549-4562.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for that. So we're going to close it up. This topic, like I said, we could have probably gone on for hours regarding this topic. And I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us. You guys have enlightened us. You have encouraged us. You have added so much input to this conversation. This is like a part two. I feel part two in my spirit. So thank you for encouraging us. Thank you, Senator Edwards, for jumping on. Thank you, Deanna and Maya, Deanna for being able to join virtually, Maya for being here live, Brittney and Tara. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for everybody who registered and attended. We appreciate the conversation. Thank you to our sister chapters of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and any of the D9 members that are present here this evening. And just as a reminder, we want to thank our sponsors too, which is LM Hairstyles and Unisex Salon, which is here at 530 Washington Street on Route 138 in Stoughton, Mass. And CEO and owner is stylist Tara Axson, who's one of our wonderful sorors. So thank you, Tara Axson, for allowing us to be in this place. And we also have drew a blank, my apologies, Sugarfoot and Company from our soror Latanya Ward, who's out in Maryland, who is so graciously gifted our guests with some wonderful body products, Black owned. You can find her at Sugarfoot and Company on .com on the web, and you can find her at Sugarfoot_luxury body on Instagram, and One Fine Mama on Pinterest. Come on, somebody. You can find Sora Axson or Tara Axson at LM Hairstyles on both Instagram and on Facebook, and you can find her on StyleSeat/Tara Axson if you're looking to come in and get a consultation in hair. And Brittney dropped some information for me. Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram under Empress Ivy Crowns, all one word. Also on Booksy under Empress Ivy Crowns, Facebook, Britt Ivy. Yeah.
We're gonna share it with we're gonna share it with everybody so that you can experience these awesome women. And don't forget, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, the Omega Eta Zeta chapter, has a couple of upcoming events as we finish off Finer Womanhood. We have our next conversation on March 13th, which is More Than a Woman, which is regarding our definition of womanhood, where we're defining what it is. We're having these strong conversations surrounding womanhood and just re-educating on what Finer is. So that's a live conversation. The registration is up on Eventbrite. You can find that on our socials. You can see us at OmegaEtaZeta1920.org. Or on Instagram, we are Z5B_Omega Eta Zeta. And on Facebook, we are Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Omega Eta Zeta. And we also have our ending events where we're all excited about, because you can let loose and let your hair down. Sweet Wine Soca Zumba, which is going to be held on March 25th at the Randolph Intergenerational Center. That is actually coming out for registration this weekend. So if you want to wind up your bumper and come around, we'd love to see you there. So definitely keep an eye out on our social media pages. Visit our website for some information. And I heard is our state director on?
Yes, she's on.
So we want to thank our state director, our fourth Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Director, Sharina D. Wright, Esquire, for joining us this evening. So thank you all for coming on and spending a little time with us on this amazing topic. Thank you again to our panelists. You were all amazing, and we appreciate you. We hope to see you guys at one of our next events on March 13th or March 25th. Thanks, everybody, and have a good night. Thank you.